I don't like him, I don't respect him, I think he's a very poor Prime Minister. On the Mandelson issue, I spoke against the appointment of Mandelson at the time. Donald Trump described him as a moron. He was rude about Donald Trump. So I think he's been dealing, as I say, in half-truths, in half-lies, whichever you want to define them as, in half-falsehoods, probably falsehoods.
In a live television interview, Rupert Lowe shatters the carefully crafted image of Keir Starmer and his party, highlighting a corrupt system more interested in self-preservation than serving the people. As he unveils the shocking truth behind the Mandelson appointment scandal and Starmer's leadership, Lowe makes it clear, Restore is the only true hope for a nation on the brink of collapse. And if you think this is just another politician moaning from the sidelines, you are dangerously wrong.
Rupert Lowe, the MP for Great Yarmouth, has spoken to GB News about everything from the Mandelson scandal to why he launched his new party Restore, and his side of what happened with reform before his dramatic departure.
Let's talk about the explosive revelation that started all of this. Peter Mandelson, yes, that Peter Mandelson, was appointed UK ambassador to the United States, a man with one of the most scandal-soaked political histories in modern British memory. A man who was forced to resign from the government not once, but twice. You couldn't make this up. And yet there he was, handed one of the most sensitive diplomatic positions in the world. Lowe called it exactly what it was, an extraordinary, illogical decision that made zero sense unless you understood the dirty politics happening behind closed doors.
It was the most extraordinary appointment, and one which didn't make any logical common sense. Now, it appears that the appointment, listening to Ollie Robbins yesterday, I wasn't in the chamber on Monday, we voted to bring him back on Tuesday because we weren't happy with the answers he gave.
But here's where it gets even more explosive. Mandelson reportedly failed his security vetting. Think about that for a second. The man tasked with representing Britain at the highest levels of international diplomacy, sitting across from American officials, handling intelligence-sensitive conversations, couldn't pass a basic security check. And yet the appointment went ahead anyway. Why? Because according to Lowe, the Prime Minister's own office pushed it through. Keir Starmer's office, the man who built his entire political brand on being different from the old corrupt labor machine, was apparently running it.
Basically, a Prime Minister who, in my view, is economical with the truth. I think, let's talk about Mandelson. On the Mandelson issue, I spoke against the appointment of Mandelson at the time. Donald Trump described him as a moron. He was rude about Donald Trump. So
Lowe didn't mince words. He called it like it is. Starmer was economical with the truth. In other words, flat out lying. Not bending the facts, not spinning a narrative, lying. And when a sitting MP uses that kind of language about a sitting Prime Minister on national television, you know something serious has cracked open.
Prime Minister fighting for his political life, the Mandelson scandal, and a civil service that could possibly be doing the right thing or one that's utterly out of control. Where's Restore on that?
Now let's talk about Starmer himself, because Lowe did not hold back. He described the Prime Minister as a poor leader with no integrity. Not mediocre, not disappointing, no integrity. That is a brutal, total condemnation of a man who spent years positioning himself as the clean, principled alternative to everything Boris Johnson represented. The irony is almost painful. Starmer ran on honesty, on accountability, on doing things differently, and now his own former political allies and independent MPs are publicly calling him a liar with no backbone.
So I think he's been dealing, as I say, in half-truths, in half-lies, whichever you want to define them as, in half-falsehoods, probably falsehoods. And Ollie Robbins, I think, made it quite clear yesterday that actually that the Prime Minister's office had made the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson, and what the civil servants are required to do is to find a way to deliver that appointment, even though he'd failed his vetting.
Lowe actually said something that should make Labour supporters stop and think hard. He said leaving Starmer in place might be the best thing for the right wing, because a weak, chaotic Labour leader makes the party easier to defeat. That is a devastating thing to hear about your own prime minister, that his political opponents are actually hoping he stays because he's so ineffective. Starmer isn't just failing the country, he's failing his own party so badly that his enemies want to keep him around.
So I think on the Mandelson issue, it's more of the same. I mean, I blame Blair Brown, Campbell Mandelson, and Derry Irvine for the beginning of the undermining of the British Constitution with all the various reforms they did, from the Human Rights Act to the creation of the Supreme Court to the Equalities Act, all the things that they did that I think had long-lasting, damaging consequences for the way in which we're governed. And it's probably part of the reason why we've ended up with a human rights lawyer like Keir Starmer, who I think will meet himself coming around a corner one day. So I don't like him, I don't respect him, I think he's a very poor Prime Minister.
And don't think the Conservatives escaped this either. Lowe's rage isn't partisan, it's total. He reminds you that the Tory party won an 80-seat majority, a mandate so enormous they could have done almost anything they wanted. And what did they do? Nothing. Tax cuts that never came. Brexit promises that dissolved into bureaucratic nonsense. Public services that got worse every single year. They had the keys to the kingdom, and they fumbled them so badly that Britain ended up handing power to a Labour Party nobody was truly excited about. That's how badly the Conservatives failed. They didn't lose to Labour's strength. They lost to their own incompetence.
But you tell me, what did the Tories do with an 80-seat majority that you were proud of, other than that?
We introduced the free speech higher education bill. We began the process of deregulating.
Why didn't you reverse all of the malign legislation that Tony Blair had passed?
Because I had a bill to remove 5,000 EU laws, and unfortunately Rishi Sunak kiboshed it because he was hopeless. But Tory.
This is exactly the gap Lowe is trying to fill with Restore. He's not building a protest party. He's building what he believes is the only serious vehicle for genuine right-wing change left in British politics. The policies are sharp and deliberate, scrapping inheritance tax, raising VAT thresholds, slashing government overreach, and rebuilding national security from the ground up. These aren't vague promises. These are direct challenges to the economic worldview that both Labour and the Conservatives have been too cowardly to confront.
And we now have 131,000 signed up supporters. Now, ours are real supporters. I call the Reform membership the Hotel California membership because it's easier to sign up.
Restore already has 131,000 supporters and over 400 active branches across the country. For a brand new party with limited media coverage, those numbers are not nothing. Lowe says the people joining aren't typical political activists. They're people who stopped watching politics years ago because they felt completely abandoned. They're middle-class workers who feel taxed into poverty while watching their public services collapse. They're small business owners suffocating under regulation. They are angry, and they are finally showing up.
But the important point here is that from the people we're seeing joining up, the exciting thing is that a lot of them have not been involved in British politics for 25 or 30 years. So we are offering them an opportunity to join a party which actually I think is reflective of what they want and what they think.
But here's the uncomfortable question that Lowe was pushed on hard during the interview, and it's the question you need to sit with. What happens to the vote? If Restore pulls support away from Reform and the Conservatives, does that split fracture the right wing so badly that Labour just walks back into power? Lowe knows this risk. He's not naive. He openly admits that a divided right-wing vote is dangerous, and yet he refuses to merge, refuses to compromise, refuses to water down what Restore stands for.
And we've got a lot more research coming. We've got research coming on border control. We've got research coming. I'm doing a big economic paper. I'm doing a big energy paper. We're doing a paper on IHT. We've said we'll scrap IHT. It's a very, very small raiser of tax. Ultimately, we're doing a paper on almost, raising the VAT threshold, all the things we're going to do to release honest people and allow them to pursue their lives unfettered by a nanny state which has become, if you like, a burden on the back of productive Britain.
His argument is actually more sophisticated than it sounds. He believes that reform and the Conservatives have already failed the voters who supported them. Merging with failed brands doesn't create strength, it creates contamination. Why attach Restore to parties that voters have already rejected? His logic is that the only way to build genuine momentum is to offer something clean, something credible, something that hasn't already broken its promises. Whether you agree with Lowe politically or not, you have to respect the intellectual honesty here. He's not telling you what you want to hear. He's telling you what he actually believes, which is increasingly rare in a political landscape full of focus grouped, spin-doctored, carefully packaged non-answers.
And I suspect that Starmer's told him a pack of lies, which he's bought. So the question is it the last act of a surrender monkey of a Prime Minister who has generally made a complete mess of almost everything he's done?
The bigger picture here is something that should alarm every person in Britain regardless of where they sit politically. The institutions are wobbling. When a Prime Minister's office can push through an appointment for someone who failed security vetting and then be described as lying about it by a sitting MP, the system is not just creaking, it's cracking. Lowe connects Mandelson's appointment to a longer pattern that started with Blair's Human Rights Act, the Equalities Act, the creation of the Supreme Court. All moves that, in his view, quietly shifted power away from democratic accountability and into the hands of an unelected establishment.
Where I asked the Prime Minister, literally, will he show us the documents that were effectively scrutinized before he was appointed? Because I'm old enough to remember Mandelson perpetrating lots of misfeasance in public office over his mortgage with Jeffrey Robinson. And, you know, he's had a roller coaster of a ride.
That might sound dramatic, but when you look at how Mandelson's appointment actually played out, it's hard to dismiss entirely. The question of who really runs Britain, elected politicians or a shadowy network of connected insiders, is not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's a legitimate democratic concern that millions of ordinary people are asking at kitchen tables across the country. Lowe's final message in the interview was not hopeful, it was urgent. He said that the next few years are not just politically important, they are critical for the nation's survival as a functioning democracy. If the right wing continues to fracture, if voters stay disengaged, if the establishment keeps operating without accountability, Britain doesn't just drift left, it drifts into something much harder to name and much harder to reverse.
Since we launched the party in February, we've now got over 400 branches up and running. And if you came and saw the level of enthusiasm of real people fighting for local democracy, you would be astounded.
You can brush off Rupert Lowe as just another ambitious politician chasing a vanity project, or you can pay attention to the stark truth he's laying out. The people running this country have stopped listening to you. The appointments are rigged, the promises are empty, and the leaders we were sold have been lying straight to our faces. Whether Restore rises or falls, that uncomfortable truth isn't going anywhere, and the longer you ignore it, the more costly the consequences become. With Britain's future hanging by a thread, is Restore the game changer we need, or just another doomed attempt that hands the left the victory? Like, share, and subscribe, because what happens next will determine whether we save this country or watch it slip further away.